think 590 characters that I need to start building up. They're all tanks. So I have a monk tank, Death Knight tank, druid tank, paladin tank. I think my warrior is not quite max level. I think I have a 90 in some other class, but at any rate, I like tanking on every class that it's available to me for. I don't do DPS or healing in any class now.
Have you ever thought about playing World of Tanks?
No. I did actually play World of Tanks for a little bit, but it's a little bit different.
For people who don't know who you are, who are you? What do you do?
I'm Matthew Rorie, product manager for Comic-Con and Giant Bomb. I do a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff, support, community management, store stuff, basically everything else that none of the editors really have time to do.
Coffee. I don't get how people drink coffee. Coffee's the worst.
Says the man who was drinking bath gin.
And you also play a hell of a bunch of WoW, apparently.
Off and on for the last 10 years. I think I started around 4 or 5 months before the game came out. So I was working for GameSpot at the time, freelancing, doing game guides. I don't know why I put freelancing in quotes. I was actually freelancing. And my editor at the time gave me a hookup for the Friends and Family Alpha, I think. We were all on Ner'zhul, I believe. It was, you know, definitely some people, you'd get here at 8 a.m. and like, you're here early, and they would look at you like, oh, I never went home. A lot of sleeping in the office around that time. It came out during, you know, the end of the year where we had to do all our Game of the Year stuff, so a lot of people spent a lot of time. And there was fierce debate about that getting Game of the Year, I remember, but a lot of people were behind it, and I think it eventually did.
You've been playing on and off for the past 10 years. What was your sort of most, I guess, what was the most impactful expansion pack, do you think?
For me, it was Wrath of the Lich King. I definitely found that was one of my favorite ones, because I normally play as a tank, which is a character that kind of has to absorb a bunch of hits and make sure nobody else in your team is getting hit. And they've had a lot of iterative design decisions with tanks over the years. Before Wrath, it was kind of, you didn't really do much damage as a tank, you just kind of put out threat, and threat is what makes people attack you. So it was fun to do, you were still getting hit a bunch, but you weren't actually really contributing a lot to the fights, or just kind of like making sure you don't die. But then Wrath kind of turned that on its head. They reduced the amount of threat that tanks do, but they really upped the damage on what they did to enemies, so you would actually keep the monster's attention on you by doing huge amounts of damage, which was really fun. Obviously, I've been in guilds on and off, and it was really fun to play with those people in dungeons as well. But eventually, I think it was around the time of Wrath, they added the looking for group tool, which is kind of a random queue thing. You can just plop in your role. I want to do a dungeon, I want to do this dungeon or that dungeon, and I want to be a tank or a healer or a DPS. And it would automatically make a group for you and plop you into the dungeon and warp you right back out at the end. So it took away a lot of the difficulty in terms of finding a group. You used to have to sit around cities like, hey, who wants to do this dungeon? Just type around for half an hour trying to find a group, and then inevitably somebody would drop out in the first 5 minutes. It was a real nightmare. So the looking for group tool, I know a lot of people complain about what it did to communities and server communities and stuff like that, but for me it was, if I wanted to go out and take half an hour or an hour of my time, I could log in, and as a tank, the queues are really short because there are not as many tanks as there are other roles. So I would log in, get into a group and play for, 2-3 dungeons and just kind of pop right back out and go on my merry way. Just walk away from my computer without having to worry too much about it. So it was primarily born of convenience. I wanted to do what I would like to do, and I liked playing 5-man dungeons a lot. I like soloing as well. I like doing almost everything in the game, but I really enjoyed playing 5-man dungeons, and tanking was kind of the way to do that more easily. But then once I started doing it more and more, it became kind of a psychological thing too. It was, I enjoyed being the kind of person in the game who had to be, it's hard to describe really what it is metaphysically or whatever, but you're the person who the entire group kind of depends on to not waste everybody's time. So you have to be very competent as a tank to actually get through a lot of these dungeons. But it was a way to take on responsibility in a game that I really hadn't explored too much before. I've played a lot of multiplayer games, but those are generally you're part of a big team, and you're kind of one cog in a machine. But tanking has always been kind of a weird way to take on responsibility that I don't normally look for in either real life or other games.
It's a weird role. It's like in sports, it'd be like in football or soccer, the goalkeeper.
Or the pitcher, kind of you're out there on an island and you have to be good at what you do, but you also have to rely on your teammates. And it's always been something that kind of fascinates me, just kind of being the person who is going to be, you got my shield, you can hit it as much as you want, but you're not going to get these guys back here, no matter how terrible they are at their jobs. not everybody really wants to do that. Not everybody thinks it's fun, but I really think it's fun. And the rewards now are just, I can pop in and play a dungeon without having to wait like even 30 seconds, as opposed to right now with Draenor right here, DPS queues are like an hour sometimes. So, but yeah, it seems like it's a great looking expansion. I'm really enjoying the Garrison stuff, and I'm really looking forward to taking some time this usually after Christmas. That Christmas week is when I play for about 80 hours, so I'm looking forward to clocking that time in.